I like this thing a lot. It's not perfect. I'm Bobby, this is Shiny Brain, and today we're griping about the Switch 2. Now, I reviewed this thing already, I gave it a 7 out of 10. But what kept it from being a 10? Why didn't I say, money be damned, go buy this thing? Well, there's just a few nagging little things that kind of add up to an experience that's just a few steps short of perfect. And while a video game system will always be about the games you can play on it more than the hardware itself, these are some of the things that I think Nintendo should fix for the Switch 2 going forward. First up, when you're downloading games, which is just how things are going to work in 2025 and beyond, there's no way to organize anything. There's no download management. You can click through and say, hey, I want you to download this one now, but you can't go into the stack and say, okay, make this one second, this one third. And maybe you're never going to be downloading that many things at once. Well, I can think of one time. If you're like me, you had a large library from the Switch 1 to bring over. And man, that took forever. And all the games came in this really random order because I couldn't control it. I mean, sure, I could sit there and dictate, hey, I want this one to come first every single time. But I have a lot of games and I wasn't about to sit through that. So I kind of just had to let it go and come back to it in about a day when everything was done. So some kind of management system there would be great to add in a firmware update. And speaking of the operating system, why aren't there folders? It's 2025 and the operating system is just the string of, a dozen or whatever it is games that are on the home screen, and then the rest spill over into, your kind of overflow screen, which is organized enough. You can do it by title or by playtime. But why can't I just make a Pokemon folder or a Mario folder or a Nintendo folder and a third-party folder? Like, why? Why? That would be a really easy one. And honestly, I can't believe the Switch 1 never got that because the 3DS had it. Back in the early 2010s or mid-2010s or whenever they added it there, it never followed to Nintendo's hugely successful home and portable hybrid system. Which, hey, okay, fine. Hit me with it. Maybe you don't need it. But this isn't a list of things you absolutely need. These are a list of things that I want. You're going to hear about it. Speaking of things I want, I actually want to play this in handheld mode more. I like the screen. It's bigger than the original Switch. It's a lot more pleasant to use. But it is missing one thing. I wish it was more ergonomic. And there are ways you can fix that. I actually do have a grip that I will use with it in handheld mode. It's really nice. It's by Savage Raven. I, encourage you to go check out their website. But I shouldn't have to attach a third-party thing to make using this for extended periods of time better or like baseline good. This is baseline fine. Baseline good would include some grips, alongside the Joy-Con, so it's just not so flat. Like the Steam Deck is ginormous and kind of unwieldy, and it does have those nice big grips for you to hold. And I don't really know what the argument against that is at this point. Are we really trying to save some kind of like portability factor with this? Sure, it's nice and thin, but no one's putting this in their pocket. It's going in a bag or in a case that goes in a bag. If it was just a little thicker, great. It doesn't really change how portable it is, and I can hold it and feel better about it. Next up, this is a gripe that really isn't about Nintendo. I think everybody does this, but I am annoyed, so here we go. Why do I need to buy current generation controllers to wake the console up from sleep when there's no meaningful difference between the current generation controller and the previous generation controller other than what you allow it to do, Nintendo? Yeah, I'm talking about the $85 Pro controller or the $95 Joy-Con if for some reason you needed to get an extra set of those. The only way to wake the Switch 2 up is with one of those two products. There's no other way to do it remotely from your couch. I've got 3 Switch 1 Pro controllers just lying around. They're just as functional as the Switch 2 Pro controller. The only thing they're missing on the underside, the Switch 2 Pro controller has those 2 programmable buttons on the grips. But other than that, it's the same layout. They do the same thing. There's no innovation here, really. And I can use the Switch 1 Pro controller. I guess I'll give Nintendo credit for that. You can use the Pro controller from the original generation Switch on the new one, but they won't let you wake it from sleep. And yeah, you got me. I spent $85 more so I could do that. I shouldn't have to. That's an easy thing. That's a firmware thing. And oh, by the way, there's a great library and collection full of third-party controllers like 8-Bit Do that would be awesome to be able to use as a daily driver, but I can't because you won't let them wake the thing up from sleep mode. So it's either I get off the couch and, press the button every time, which, it's 2025. We don't do that anymore. Or I use your thing. And you got me. I'm using your thing, but I hate it. Next up, another thing Nintendo can't really change about this Switch 2, but I also think is an easy spot for a revision for the next Switch 2 if there is one. Let's talk about the screen. So the current screen is bigger and an LCD compared to the older Switch, which had a smaller LCD, but the Switch OLED was so nice. I didn't like using the Switch OLED in handheld mode more than I had to because of how small it was, and I just didn't love the feel of it. But that screen was legit, and it's the one thing that kind of irks me about the new one hardware-wise, that, Nintendo may circle back around and say, hey, you said you didn't like that you didn't have an OLED. Well, what if we sold you this fancy Switch 2 OLED? You'd pay that much, right? That's going to be the problem is, in 2029 or whenever they do the mid-generation refresh and they bump the screen up, what is that going to cost? And what's the resale value of a original Switch 2 going to be by then? Maybe, let's say that the new Switch OLED, is $600 maybe, and you could sell your current Switch 2 for, let's say, $375. Would you pay $225 to upgrade from Switch 2 LCD to Switch 2 OLED? That'd be tough. I'd be right on the fence, but it would have been nice to have that option at the jump. Now, there's a lot of reasons why it's not here at launch. It would have made it a lot more expensive. Those screens may not be as easy for Nintendo to source, so maybe they can't even make as many of them as they would have needed to. But it just sort of stinks to know kind of exactly what the next thing they're going to do to your system is in terms of that mid-gen refresh, and know that you're probably going to want it, and it's not going to be cheap. But the last thing that I wish was different about the Nintendo Switch 2 is actually something Nintendo can do something about right now if they wanted to. The Nintendo Switch Online Virtual Console systems should have way more than they do. Off the top of my head, Donkey Kong 64, the Pokemon Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games, almost any game you can think of for the GameCube, because they've only got 4 games on there as I record this right now. There's just so much more that's out there that Nintendo could put on this. And they insist on this kind of drip, drip, drip strategy when it comes to releasing these games. And I think if they were doing this as paid thing, like they did on the Wii and the Wii U, where you paid for each individual game, I could sort of see the wisdom in that, give people something to buy, once a month or two, whatever the cadence is. But since this is a subscription service and you own everything, this isn't a Netflix situation. Hit me with the good stuff, man. Give me Smash Melee. Give me Mario Kart Double Dash. Give me Donkey Kong 64, like I was saying. These games that would seem to be pretty obvious, the ones that Nintendo has seemingly a clear path to. There's some more complicated ones, rights wise, that maybe Nintendo would have a harder time securing. But ironically, some of those include games that are already up there. Like 007 is a really tough game rights wise, but they figured that one out already. Mario Kart Double Dash, I think all someone has to do is take Mario Kart Double Dash.gc, from Nintendo's ROM archive up there and upload the thing, and, we could play it. I don't know why they won't let me do that. The system service, it's not like Nintendo is, taking games away sometimes and putting games on at other times. It's not that kind of thing like with Netflix, where you can only play some games sometimes. Everything that's gone on there has stayed on there. So just put everything on there. Give me more than 4 GameCube games at launch. So anyway, those are my gripes. What do you think? What would you change about the Switch 2? And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. We're going to talk a lot more about Nintendo as the games come out this year for Switch 2. I am like at least 10 or 15 hours into Donkey Kong Bonanza, and I have some complicated feelings about that I'll get to in a later video. But for now, if you're on the fence about upgrading to a Switch 2 from a Switch 1, take a look at this video for some things I think you should know. There are 5 really good upgrades, but there's 2 things about upgrading from Switch 1 to Switch 2 you may not know about that I think you should keep in mind before you do it. I'll see you in the next video.